The great hall was silent. 300 beings from across the galaxy sat in their seats waiting. Some had tentacles, some had wings, some glowed with soft light. But all of them watched the center stage with the same feeling: hope. Dr. Vexthon stood at the front. He was a Krillian, tall and thin, with 4 arms and skin that changed colors when he felt strong emotions. Right now his skin showed deep blue stripes. That meant he was serious and focused. Behind him floated a hologram, showing a flat stone tablet covered in strange symbols. The tablet was old, very old, so old that no one knew exactly when it was made. The Galactic Council had found it 300 years ago on a dead planet at the edge of known space. Since then, the best minds in the galaxy had tried to read it. All of them failed. Vexthon had spent his entire life studying the predecessors. That was the name everyone used for the ancient civilization that came before. They had built cities on 100 worlds. They had made technology that even modern science could not fully understand. Then one day they vanished. No bodies, no messages, just empty buildings and mysterious objects left behind. The stone tablet was one of those objects. It sat in the ancient vault, a massive library built to hold everything the predecessors left behind. Thousands of items filled the vault. Some were useful, like advanced power generators. Some were beautiful, like sculptures that seemed to shift and breathe. But many, like the tablet, were complete mysteries. Vexthon cleared his throat. The sound echoed through the hall. "Honored members of the council," he began, "I have spent 30 years studying this artifact. I have used every tool we possess: translation algorithms, pattern recognition, quantum analysis, even empathic reading." He paused and looked around the room. "I must conclude that these symbols are not a language. Perhaps they are decorative art. Perhaps they represent mathematical concepts beyond our understanding. But they cannot be read as text." A wave of disappointment moved through the crowd. Some beings shifted in their seats. Others made small sounds of sadness. They had hoped for different news. In the back row, almost hidden behind taller creatures, sat a young human named Hyunwoo. He was 26 years old and worked as a junior archaeologist for Earth's colonial research program. Humans were new to the galaxy. They had only made contact with alien civilizations 50 years ago. Before that, they thought they were alone in the universe. Hyunwoo was not supposed to be here. He was too junior, too inexperienced. But his supervisor had gotten sick and someone needed to attend the presentation. So here he sat, feeling out of place and small among beings who had studied the stars for thousands of years. He watched as Vexthon rotated the hologram, showing the tablet from different angles. The symbols were carved deep into the stone. They had sharp edges and smooth curves. Some were simple, some were complex. They seemed to flow across the surface in neat rows. Something about those rows bothered Hyunwoo. He leaned forward, squinting at the hologram. The symbols looked almost familiar. Not the symbols themselves, but the way they were arranged. The spacing. The flow. Vexthon continued his presentation. "We believe the predecessors had minds very different from ours. Their logic, their way of seeing the world may be impossible for us to understand. This tablet might contain great wisdom or it might be meaningless. We may never know." The Luminara delegate spoke up. She was a being of pure energy, contained in a crystalline form. Her voice sounded like wind chimes. "I have touched the tablet with my consciousness. I sensed nothing. No emotion, no meaning, just empty stone." Other experts shared their findings. A Threen mathematician had analyzed the symbol patterns for 15 years. He found no mathematical relationships. A Zorvian linguist had compared the symbols to 8,000 known languages. None matched. Hyunwoo felt his heart beating faster. He raised his hand slowly, then lowered it. He was nobody. Why would these important people listen to him? But the feeling would not go away. Those symbols looked wrong. Or rather, they looked right but positioned wrong. He remembered his grandmother back on Earth. She used to test him when he was a child. She would hold books upside down and ask him to read them. "The world does not always show you things the right way," she would say. "You must learn to look from all directions." The presentation was ending. Vexthon was thanking everyone for their time. Soon the delegates would leave and the tablet would go back into the vault, unsolved for another 100 years. Hyunwoo stood up. His legs felt weak. "Excuse me," he said. His voice was quiet. Too quiet. Nobody heard him. He tried again, louder. "Excuse me, Dr. Vexthon?" The hall went silent. 300 faces turned to look at him. Hyunwoo felt his face grow hot. He almost sat back down. But he had come this far. Vexthan's skin flickered with orange spots. That meant curiosity mixed with annoyance. Yes, do you have a question? Hyunwoo walked down the aisle toward the stage. Each step felt like it took forever. When he reached the front, he looked up at the hologram. From this angle, he could see the symbols more clearly. His suspicion grew stronger. Dr. Vexthan, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Could you please rotate the hologram? Turn it upside down. 180 degrees, murmurs filled the hall. Some delegates sounded amused. Some sounded irritated. Vexthan's skin showed more orange spots. Young human, we have examined this tablet from every possible angle. The orientation makes no difference to— Please, Hyunwoo interrupted. He knew it was rude, but he had to see. Just once. Please turn it upside down. Vexthan stared at him for a long moment. Then with a gesture of one hand, he rotated the hologram. The tablet flipped. The symbols that had been at the top moved to the bottom. The bottom moved to the top. Hyunwoo stopped breathing. His grandmother's voice echoed in his mind. The symbols were not strange at all. They were perfect. They were clear. They were his own language, written in an ancient style but unmistakable. It is Korean, he whispered. Then louder, his voice shaking with disbelief and wonder. It is Korean. I can read it. The hall erupted in noise, but Hyunwoo did not hear it. He only saw the symbols, now right side up, telling him a message from the distant past. News traveled fast across the galaxy. Within 2 days, every major world knew about the discovery. The predecessors were human. The mystery that had puzzled civilizations for millennia had been solved by a junior archaeologist who simply turned a tablet right side up. Reactions were mixed. Some species celebrated the discovery as a breakthrough in understanding galactic history. Others worried about what it meant for the future. And on Earth, billions of people struggled to process the revelation that their ancestors had once walked the stars. Hyunwoo barely slept during those first days. Teams of experts arrived at the vault every hour. Linguists, historians, archaeologists, anthropologists, anyone who could help translate the human artifacts. The Galactic Council had declared it a priority investigation. Donghyun arrived on the 3rd day. He was a professor of ancient texts from Seoul University, in his 60s, with decades of experience reading archaic Korean, Chinese, and Japanese scripts. When Hyunwoo met him at the vault entrance, the older man pulled him into a tight hug. You have made our people famous, Donghyun said with a broad smile. Also, you have given me more work than I can finish in 3 lifetimes. They walked together through the vault's endless corridors. Hyunwoo had not fully appreciated the scale of the place before. It stretched underground for kilometers with halls stacked 20 levels deep. Climate control kept everything at perfect temperature and humidity. Soft lights illuminated artifacts arranged on platforms in cases behind protective fields. How many predecessor items are here? Hyunwoo asked. Over 100,000 cataloged pieces, Donghyun replied, and perhaps 50,000 more in storage waiting to be examined. We think maybe 1,000 of them contain human writing. 1,000. The number made Hyunwoo dizzy. Each one might contain answers. Each one might reveal something about what happened. They started with the most promising artifacts. A team of 12 worked together in a large examination room. Besides Hyunwoo and Donghyun, there were 3 other Korean language experts, 2 Chinese specialists, 1 Japanese scholar, and 5 Galactic Council researchers, including Vexthan. The first artifact was a metal box sealed for thousands of years. When they opened it, they found it filled with data crystals. Each crystal contained thousands of documents, records, journals, reports, messages. A young graduate student named Ji-won took charge of organizing the data. She was brilliant with computers, able to write programs that could sort and categorize information faster than anyone else on the team. She connected the crystals to a translation interface and got to work. Most of these are routine, she reported after the first day. Supply inventories, maintenance logs, meeting minutes. But there are some personal writings too. Journals, letters that were never sent. Hyunwoo read one of the journals. It belonged to someone named Tae Yang, a colonist on a world called New Jeju. The entries talked about daily life, growing crops in alien soil, missing family back home, celebrating traditional festivals with other settlers. It was ordinary and extraordinary at the same time. These were people just like him living thousands of years ago, making homes among the stars. Another artifact was more troubling. It was a cracked data pad, its screen long dead but its memory intact. Dong Hyun accessed the files and found military reports. Warnings about system failures, evacuation orders. This mentioned something called the Cascade, Dong Hyun said, his voice worried. It happened across multiple colonies at the same time. Power systems failed. Ships stopped working. Communication networks went dark. Ji-won pulled up more files with similar content. A pattern emerged. Whatever happened to the predecessors, it was not gradual. It was sudden and catastrophic. On the 5th day, Ji-won made the breakthrough everyone feared. She found a chronicle, a detailed historical record written by a survivor named Hae-won. The document was long, over 200 pages when translated. It told the complete story. The team gathered in the examination room. Ji-won displayed the translation on a holographic screen. She read aloud, her voice shaking. "We were fools," the chronicle began. "We built an empire across the stars. We thought we were masters of technology, conquerors of nature. But we built too fast. We pushed too hard. We did not understand what we were doing." The document explained that the predecessors had discovered a new form of energy. It was incredibly powerful, able to fuel entire cities from devices the size of a hand. They called it quantum resonance and built it into everything: ships, buildings, tools, weapons. But the technology was unstable. The predecessors knew this. Scientists warned about the risks. But economic and political pressures pushed them to deploy it anyway. Every colony wanted it. Every corporation wanted to profit from it. Every military wanted its power. The warnings came too late. A cascade failure began on one world and spread through the quantum network that connected everything. Like dominoes falling, one system failed after another. Ships died in space. Cities went dark. Life support systems stopped working. "We tried to evacuate," Hae-won's chronicle continued. "We sent ships back to Earth with survivors. But so many died. Billions died. And Earth itself was not safe. The quantum resonance had infected our home world too." The chronicle described the desperate attempt to save humanity. Leaders decided to reset civilization. They would destroy all quantum resonance technology. They would erase the records of how to build it. Future generations would not repeat the mistake. "We created the survival pods," Hae-won wrote. "Deep space stations with frozen embryos and genetic material. Insurance in case Earth's population fell too low. Then we destroyed the quantum network. We watched our civilization fall apart. We did it to save our children." The team sat in silence after Ji-won finished reading. Vexthon spoke first. "They chose to forget. They destroyed their own technology to save themselves." "Not all of it," Dong Hyun said. He pointed to the artifacts around them. "These survived. The non-quantum technology. The safe technology. They left it for others to find. But they did not leave the dangerous parts," Hyunwoo realized. "That is why we never found weapons, never found the power sources that ran their cities. They eliminated anything that could cause another cascade." Ji-won pulled up another section of the chronicle. It says here that survivors on Earth eventually rebuilt. But the process took thousands of years. And by then, the memory of the Star Empire had faded into myth. A few stories survived, tales of people who flew to heaven, of cities in the sky. But no one believed they were real. "So modern humans are not descendants," Vexthon said slowly. "You are the survivors. The same civilization, just reset." The implications settled over the room like heavy snow. Humanity had not evolved separately from the predecessors. They were the predecessors, just with a gap in their memory. Over the following weeks, the team translated hundreds more documents. They found ship logs that matched Hae-won's account. They found personal testimonies from other survivors. They found farewell messages from colonists who knew they would not make it home. One message hit Hyunwoo particularly hard. It was from a father to his daughter, recorded as his colony's life support failed. "I am sorry I cannot see you grow up," the man said in ancient Korean. "But I am glad you will live. Earth will survive. Humanity will survive. We made sure of it. Maybe one day your descendants will return to the stars. When they do, I hope they will be wiser than we were." Hyunwoo played the message 3 times. Each time, tears ran down his face. This was not ancient history. This was family. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Every species sent representatives. They needed to decide what to do with this information. The question was simple but difficult. Should they tell everyone the truth? Some argued yes. The truth should never be hidden. Others argued no. Knowing that the predecessors destroyed themselves might panic people. It might make species afraid of their own technology. Ambassador Dayun spoke for Earth. The truth will come out eventually, she said. Better to share it now, clearly and completely, than to let rumors and fear spread. After 3 days of debate, the council agreed. They would release all information about the predecessors. They would make the translated documents public. Every being in the galaxy would know what happened, but they would also make one thing very clear. The predecessors failed, but they also saved themselves. They chose wisdom over pride. They chose survival over power. That was a lesson worth remembering. The truth spread across the galaxy like a wave. Within hours of the council's announcement, every news network broadcast the story. The predecessors were human. They had destroyed themselves. They had chosen to forget rather than risk extinction. Reactions came fast and varied. On Earth, people gathered in the streets. Some celebrated, proud that their ancestors had built a galactic civilization. Others mourned, sad that so much had been lost. Many simply stood confused, trying to understand what it all meant. In Seoul, where Hyunwoo had been born, 1 million people filled the central plaza. They projected the images of predecessor artifacts onto buildings. They sang old songs that suddenly felt new. Some claimed the songs were actually ancient memories, passed down through thousands of generations. But celebration was not universal. In the Vrin system, military commanders held emergency meetings. The Vrin were cautious by nature, always worried about threats. And now the newest species in the galaxy, humans, who had seemed weak and primitive, turned out to be the inheritors of the most advanced civilization ever known. This changes the balance, said General Crix to his council. If humans claim their inheritance, they could dominate us all. Similar conversations happened on a dozen worlds. The Threen worried about their trade agreements. The Zorvians worried about their territorial boundaries. Even species that had been friendly to humans began to question whether that friendship was wise. On Earth, the government faced pressure from multiple sides. Some groups demanded that Earth claim all predecessor technology. They argued it was humanity's birthright, stolen by time and circumstance. A man named Jin Ho became the loudest voice for this position. He was young, charismatic, and angry. He broadcast daily messages from his apartment in Busan. They use our technology, he said to his millions of followers. They built their civilizations on our ancestors' work, and they give us nothing in return. It is time to take back what is ours. His movement grew quickly. Protests erupted in major cities. People carried signs demanding reparations. Some called for Earth to leave the Galactic Council. Others called for Earth to take leadership of it. Ambassador Da-un watched the protest from her office window. She felt tired, old. This was not what she wanted. The discovery should have brought people together, not torn them apart. We need to respond, said her assistant, a young diplomat named Minho. Jin Ho's followers are organizing. They plan to march on the government complex tomorrow. Let them march, Da-un said. They have the right to protest. But what they are demanding is impossible. We cannot claim every predecessor artifact. The galaxy would never accept it. Da-un knew he was right, but she also understood Jin Ho's anger. Humans had struggled for 50 years to be accepted in the galactic community. They had been treated as primitives, as children who needed guidance. Now they learned they had once been teachers. The irony was bitter. At the Galactic Vault, Hyunwoo tried to focus on his work. But the political situation made everything difficult. Some species had stopped sending researchers. Others sent security guards to watch the human researchers, afraid they might steal artifacts. Vexthan found Hyunwoo sitting alone in the examination room, staring at a datapad without really reading it. You look troubled, my friend, the Krillian said. I thought finding the truth would solve problems, Hyunwoo admitted. Instead, it created new ones. Truth often does that, Vexthan replied. He sat down beside Hyunwoo. I have been thinking about my own reaction when you first translated the tablet. I was angry, not at you, but at myself. I had spent 300 years being wrong. That is a hard thing to accept. But you accepted it, Hyunwoo said. because the evidence was clear. But imagine if it had been unclear. If there was room for doubt, I might have fought against it, insisted I was right, found reasons to reject your translation. That is what is happening now on many worlds. People are afraid, so they create reasons to justify their fear. While they talked, Jiwon burst into the room. Her face was flushed with excitement. I found something. Another chronicle. And this one, you need to see this. She pulled up a video file on the main display. The image was grainy, damaged by time, but clear enough. A woman appeared on screen. She was middle-aged, with kind eyes and gray hair. She wore simple clothes and sat in what looked like a command center. She began to speak in ancient Korean. Jiwon had added subtitles in Galactic Common. My name is Bora, the woman said. I am the last administrator of the Earth Preservation Project. If you are seeing this, it means we failed. Or rather, we succeeded in a way we did not want. Humanity survived but forgot. Bora's message had been recorded over 40,000 years ago, but her words felt immediate and urgent. I know what you must be thinking, whoever you are. If you are human, you probably feel angry. Why did we forget? Why did we give up the stars? If you are not human, you probably feel afraid. The predecessors are back. What will they do? She leaned forward, looking directly into the camera. Let me tell you what happened. We built wonders. We created technology that made life easy and comfortable. We spread across hundreds of worlds. We thought we were invincible. Her expression turned sad. But we were not wise. We built too fast. We did not test our technology properly. We competed with each other instead of cooperating. Pride and profit mattered more than safety. And when the cascade began, when our technology turned against us, we paid the price. Bora described the same events as Haewon's chronicle, but with more personal detail. She had been on Earth when the cascade reached it. She had watched billions die. She had helped organize the evacuation of survivors to remote areas, away from the failing technology. We had a choice, she said. We could try to rebuild the same civilization, hoping we would not make the same mistakes. Or we could reset completely. Start over. Give our descendants a chance to grow slowly, naturally, wisely. She paused, wiping tears from her eyes. We chose to reset. We destroyed all records of our quantum resonance technology. We demolished the orbital stations. We erased the computer networks. We kept only basic tools and knowledge, agriculture, medicine, simple construction, enough to survive and eventually thrive. But we left markers, Bora continued. We left artifacts that could not harm anyone. We put them in places where future civilizations might find them. We hoped that someday, when humanity returned to the stars, they would find these messages. They would learn what we did. They would learn from our mistakes. She looked tired now, worn down by grief and responsibility. If you are human and you are angry that we forgot, I understand. But please know that we did it for you. We gave you a chance to be better than we were. And if you are not human, Bora said, her voice growing stronger, if you are another species who found our technology and built upon it, then I say this, thank you. We failed, but we left something useful behind. That makes our lives, our civilization, worth something. We did not just destroy, we also created. And creation can outlive the creator. She stood up, preparing to end the recording. But she had one more thing to say. To everyone who finds this, human or otherwise, I have one request. We left everything behind so the next generation, whoever they are, whatever they become, would build something better. Do not repeat our mistakes. Do not let pride and competition destroy you. Share everything. Work together. The stars belong to everyone. The recording ended. The room was silent. Jiwon spoke first. The genetic records show Bora had children. They survived the reset, and her descendants are still alive today. Where? Hyunwoo asked. A small farming community outside Busan. The irony was not lost on anyone. Jinho, who called for conflict and claimed Earth's inheritance, broadcast from Busan. And somewhere nearby, Bora's descendants lived quietly, probably knowing nothing about their famous ancestor. Ambassador Daun arrived at the vault within hours. Vexthan showed her the recording. She watched it 3 times without speaking. Then she made a decision. We need to broadcast this, she said. Everyone needs to see it. Especially the protesters. Especially Jinho and his followers. Will it help? Hyunwoo asked. I do not know, Daun admitted. But Bora is right. The truth is better than comfortable lies. That evening, the Galactic Council broadcast Bohra's message to every world. Billions of beings watched. And something shifted. Not immediately. Not completely. But the conversation changed. On Earth, the protests continued. But they were quieter now. Some people still demanded reparations. But others began talking about responsibility. About living up to Bohra's request. About being better than their ancestors. Jinho watched the broadcast in his apartment. His followers waited for his response. But for the first time, he had nothing to say. 3 days after Bohra's message broadcast across the galaxy, a news team found her living descendant. Su Bin was a farmer in her 30s. She grew rice in fields that her family had tended for generations. She knew nothing about the predecessors. She had never left her small village. When reporters told her that she was descended from the woman in the recording, Su Bin did not believe them at first. "That cannot be right," she said, laughing nervously. "My family has always been farmers. Just simple farmers, but the genetic test confirmed it. Bohra's DNA matched Su Bin's with enough markers to prove direct descent. The woman who had overseen humanity's reset was Su Bin's ancestor, 40,000 years removed. The media coverage was intense. Reporters from a dozen species came to Su Bin's village. They filmed her working in the rice paddies. They interviewed her neighbors. They asked her what she thought about being connected to galactic history. Su Bin handled it with grace and good humor. "I think my ancestor would laugh," she said during one interview. She spent her life making humanity simple again. And here I am living simply just like she wanted. Maybe her plan worked. Something about Su Bin's attitude resonated with people. She was not angry about the past. She was not demanding anything. She was just living her life, working hard, being kind to her neighbors. In a strange way, she embodied Bohra's message better than any politician or activist could. The protests on Earth began to fade. Jinho's movement lost momentum. Some of his followers felt ashamed, seeing Su Bin's humble life compared to their own demands. Others simply realized that claiming inheritance did not make sense when your ancestors specifically chose to give it away. Jinho himself eventually made a public statement. "I was wrong," he said simply. "I let anger guide me instead of wisdom. Bohra chose to let go. We should honor that choice. It was not a perfect resolution. Some people still felt that Earth deserved compensation. Some alien species still worried about human intentions. But the conversation had changed. Instead of arguing about who owned what, people started asking, what should we do next? The Galactic Council convened to answer that question. Representatives from every major species attended. Ambassador Dayun spoke for Earth, proposing what she called the Archive Accord. "We propose that all predecessor technology remain open source," she said. "Anything found in the vaults, anything translated from the artifacts, should be available to everyone. Humans will help translate and explain, but we claim no special ownership. The knowledge belongs to the galaxy." The proposal sparked debate. Some species worried that humans were being too generous, that Earth was giving up leverage it might need later. Others worried it was a trick, a way to gain influence by appearing magnanimous. But Vexthan supported the proposal. "The humans are right," he said. "The predecessors built their technology alone in competition with each other. That is what destroyed them. If we share everything, work together, maybe we can avoid their fate." After 2 weeks of negotiation, the Council approved the Archive Accord. All predecessor artifacts would be studied collaboratively. All findings would be published openly. No species would have exclusive access to anything. As part of the agreement, Earth would establish the Institute of Predecessor Studies. It would be located at the Vault, a collaborative university where humans and aliens would work together. Hyunwoo was offered the position of co-director, alongside Vexthan. He almost refused. He was still young, still learning. But Donghyun convinced him to accept. "You solved the galaxy's greatest mystery by turning something upside down," the older scholar said. "That shows you know how to look at problems differently. That is what we need now." The institute opened 6 months after the discovery. Over 500 researchers came from across the galaxy. They brought different perspectives, different knowledge, different ways of thinking. Together they made progress that none of them could have achieved alone. Jiwon became the head of digital archives. She developed new systems for organizing and translating the massive amount of data they were finding. She also started teaching courses, sharing her knowledge with students from a dozen species. The work was difficult but rewarding. Beyond technology, they found art, music, poetry, philosophy. The predecessors had not just built machines. They had created beauty. They had thought deeply about the meaning of existence. They had written poems about love, songs about longing, paintings that captured emotions too complex for words. One artifact particularly moved Hyunwoo. It was a children's book preserved in a sealed container. The pages showed pictures of spaceships and alien worlds with simple Korean text. The story was about a child who traveled to the stars and made friends with beings very different from herself. The message was clear. The universe is big and there is room for everyone. They knew, Hyunwoo said, showing the book to Vexthon. Even before they met other species, they imagined that others existed. They taught their children to be ready for it. And yet they still made mistakes, Vexthon replied. Knowing something intellectually is different from living it. They imagined cooperation but practiced competition. It was a lesson the Institute tried to embody. Every decision was made collaboratively. Every discovery was shared immediately. When disagreements arose, and they did often, people worked through them with patience and respect. 5 years passed. The Institute became one of the most respected research centers in the galaxy. Breakthroughs happened regularly. A Threen physicist developed a new faster-than-light system based on predecessor principles but much safer. A Luminara artist created light sculptures inspired by predecessor designs, mixing ancient and modern aesthetics beautifully. A human medical researcher found predecessor notes on genetic therapy and adapted them for modern species, curing diseases that had plagued the galaxy for centuries. Not everything was perfect. Some worlds still refused to fully trust humanity. Some human extremists still argued Earth should claim special status. Occasionally, artifacts revealed uncomfortable truths, weapons designs, evidence of predecessor cruelty, records of mistakes that led to suffering. But overall, the galaxy was better for the discovery. The fear that had initially gripped many species faded as they saw humans working alongside them, sharing freely, making no claims of superiority. Hyunwoo stood in the archive one evening, alone with his thoughts. He often came here when he needed to think. The archive held the original stone tablet, the one he had first translated. It sat on a pedestal, preserved behind a protective field. Vexthon found him there. The Krillian moved quietly for such a large being. "You come here often," he observed. "I like to remember how this started," Hyunwoo said. "With something simple, with turning something right side up." "I spent 3 centuries looking at that tablet," Vexthon said. He had said this before, but Hyunwoo never tired of hearing it. 3 centuries, and I never thought to just turn it around. Why do you think that is? Vexthon was quiet for a moment, his skin showing thoughtful purple patterns. "I think I was too convinced of what I already believed. I believed the predecessors were alien, incomprehensible. So I looked for alien, incomprehensible answers. I never considered that the solution might be simple. And now I try to remember that every day. The answer might be simple. The perspective might just be wrong. Sometimes you need fresh eyes." He looked at Hyunwoo. "Sometimes you need someone to say, 'Have you tried turning it upside down?'" They stood together in comfortable silence looking at the tablet. Outside the archive, ships from 100 worlds docked at the station. Inside, researchers from a dozen species collaborated on projects their ancestors could never have imagined. In classrooms, teachers from different civilizations shared knowledge with students eager to learn. Hyunwoo thought about his grandmother, who had taught him to look at things from all angles. He thought about Bora, who had chosen wisdom over pride. He thought about all the predecessors who had lived and died so that future generations, human and otherwise, could have a better chance. "Do you ever wonder if we are doing it right?" Hyunwoo asked. "If Bora would be proud?" Vexthon's skin showed warm orange, the color of contentment. "I think she would. We are not perfect. We make mistakes, but we are trying. We are working together. We are sharing everything. That is what she asked for." "The stars belong to everyone," Hyunwoo quoted from Bora's message. "Yes," Vexthon agreed. "The stars belong to everyone." A message came through on Hyunwoo's communication device. It was from G1. They had just finished translating another artifact. This one was a music collection, thousands of songs from dozens of human cultures preserved for millennia. She wanted to know if they should host a concert, play some of the songs for the Institute members. Hyunwoo smiled. Tell her yes, he said to Vexthon. Music seems like a good way to celebrate. Celebrate what? Everything. The discovery, the cooperation, the fact that something good came from turning a tablet upside down. They left the archive together, heading toward the common areas where the Institute community gathered. Behind them, the tablet remained on its pedestal, displayed right side up now, its message clear for anyone who wanted to read it. The predecessors had reached for the stars and fallen. But they had left something behind, not just technology or knowledge, but a lesson. The council chamber was enormous. It stretched high into the sky with walls made of some kind of glowing crystal. 12 different species sat around a massive circular table. Each representative looked different from the next. Some had scales, some had fur, and some seemed to be made of light itself. Ambassador Hyunwoo sat in his chair and watched the others argue. He was the human representative, and he had been sitting here for 6 days straight. 6 whole days of nothing but talking and arguing. His dark hair was a bit messy now, and his uniform had a coffee stain on the sleeve. He did not care anymore. The problem was simple. A species called the Vrax had sent a massive war fleet to the border of Council space. They had given an ultimatum. Either the Council surrendered 3 colony worlds or the Vrax would attack. The Council had been trying to decide what to do ever since. The insectoid representative from the Krell Empire was speaking now. His name was something Hyunwoo could not pronounce, so he just called him Bug Guy in his head. Bug Guy was waving his forearms around dramatically. We must strike first. Bug Guy clicked and chittered. The translator on the table turned his words into something everyone could understand. Orbital bombardment is the only solution. We destroy their fleet before they destroy us. A representative made of pure light floated up from her seat. She was from the Luminant Collective. Her voice sounded like wind chimes when she spoke. Violence only breeds more violence, she said softly. We must perform the ancient ritual of peace. It will take 3 months to prepare, but it is the only true path. Bug Guy made an angry clicking sound. 3 months? They attack in 2 weeks. Hyunwoo rubbed his tired eyes. This same conversation had happened at least 50 times already. Different words, same argument. Everyone had an opinion, but nobody agreed on anything. Sitting next to Hyunwoo was another human, Lieutenant Mi-sun. She was a military advisor, and she looked just as bored as he felt. She was drawing little cartoons on her datapad, making the alien representatives look silly. Hyunwoo glanced over and had to hide a smile. She had drawn Bug Guy with a top hat and a cane. On the other side of the chamber, a reptilian creature stood up. He was from the Scorn Dominion, and his scales were dark green. His name was Gratok, and he spoke in a deep, rumbling voice. A siege, Gratok announced. We surround their fleet and cut off their supplies. In 6 months, they will be weak. Then we strike. 6 months? Bug Guy clicked angrily. Did you not hear me? 2 weeks. The council leader, a tall alien named Tae Yang from the crystalline courts, raised his hand for silence. His body was made of some kind of transparent blue crystal that reflected light in rainbow patterns. Please, please, Tae Yang said calmly. Let us hear from our military strategist. A serious-looking alien stepped forward. He was humanoid but with gray skin and 3 eyes. His name was Dae-hyun, and he was actually half human, though he looked more alien than not. He had been working with the council for 20 years. Dae-hyun activated a holographic display. Battle simulations appeared in the air above the table. Little ships moved around, fighting each other in silent combat. I have run 4,000 simulations, Dae-hyun said in a measured tone. The most successful strategy requires coordinating all 12 council fleets. Preparation time, 8 weeks minimum. Projected casualties between 30 and 40,000.
Success probability, 67%. Hyunwoo listened and tried not to sigh out loud.
8 weeks. Thousands dead, and only a 2/3 chance of winning. This was the best plan after 6 days of meetings? Unacceptable, Bug Guy clicked. We need certainty, not probability. Then you need more time, Dae-hyun replied. Better strategies require 3 to 4 months of preparation. And just like that, they were arguing again. Voices rose. The translator worked overtime trying to keep up with everyone talking at once. The Luminants wanted peace. The Krell wanted war. The Scorn wanted patience. The others all had different ideas. Hyunwoo looked at his watch. It was almost lunchtime.
He had been in this chair since 5 in the morning.
His back hurt. His head hurt, and he was pretty sure this was all a waste of time. Sitting a few seats away was another human, Captain Jiho. She was from the engineering corps, and she looked ready to explode with frustration. She kept tapping on her datapad, probably running her own calculations. Every few minutes she would shake her head like she could not believe what she was hearing. The day dragged on. They broke for lunch, but the arguments continued even while eating. Hyunwoo sat with Misun and Jiho in a corner of the dining hall. "This is insane," Jiho muttered, stabbing her food with a fork. "I could solve this in an afternoon, but nobody will listen." "They do not want solutions," Misun said. "They want consensus. Everyone has to agree or nobody does anything." Hyunwoo ate his sandwich in silence. He was thinking. He had been thinking for 6 days now, and an idea was forming in his mind. It was not a complicated idea. In fact, it was very simple. Maybe too simple for this council to accept. The afternoon session was worse than the morning. They voted on 7 different proposals. None of them passed. Each species had veto power, and everyone kept vetoing everyone else's ideas. It was a perfect recipe for doing absolutely nothing. By evening, Taeyang called for another vote. This was the 17th official vote this week. Before he could start, Hyunwoo stood up. The chamber went quiet. The human representative had barely spoken in 6 days. Everyone looked at him with curiosity. "Ambassador Hyunwoo," Taeyang said politely. "Do you wish to speak?" "I do," Hyunwoo said. He looked around at all the different species. "I have a question. How long have we been in this room?" 6 days, Taeyang answered. "And in those 6 days, what have we accomplished?" The chamber was silent. Nobody wanted to answer that question. "Nothing," Hyunwoo continued. "We have accomplished nothing. Meanwhile, the Vrax fleet gets closer every day. We are running out of time. Do you have a better idea, human?" Krytok rumbled. "Maybe," Hyunwoo said. "But I need 6 hours." 6 hours for what? Bug Guy clicked suspiciously. Hyunwoo smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who had been sitting in meetings for too long and was done with all the talking. 6 hours to end this war," he said simply. The chamber erupted in noise. Everyone started talking at once. The translator sparked and smoked from overuse. "This was impossible," they said. "Reckless, dangerous, foolish." Taeyang raised his hands for silence. It took several minutes. "Ambassador, please explain," the council leader said carefully. "I would rather not," Hyunwoo replied. "If I explain, we will just argue about it for another 6 days. Give me 6 hours. If I fail, you can go back to your debates." Misun was trying very hard not to laugh. Jiho was grinning from ear to ear. They both knew what Hyunwoo was planning. Taeyang looked uncertain. This was highly irregular. The council did not work this way. But they were desperate, and everyone knew it. "Very well," Taeyang said finally. 6 hours. This council will reconvene after a recess." As the representatives filed out, still arguing amongst themselves, Misun leaned close to Hyunwoo. "Did you really just tell the Galactic Council to hold your beer?" she whispered. Hyunwoo pulled out his communicator. Not in those exact words, but yes. He typed a quick message to Fleet Admiral Sung-ho, who was waiting in orbit with the human fleet. The message was only 3 words long. "Protocol YOLO, go." Jiho packed up her equipment. "This is either going to work perfectly or end both our careers." "Probably both," Hyunwoo agreed. "Come on. We have work to do." The 3 humans left the council chamber while the other species continued to argue in the hallways about proper procedure and protocol. None of them noticed the human ships in orbit beginning to move into formation. None of them realized that while they had spent 6 days talking, humanity was about to spend 6 hours doing. The war was about to end. The council just did not know it yet.